What is going on, everybody? Week 3. We are here with my favorite. We've mentioned this every week, but my favorite show title on RotoGrinders, the Underworld Stack Fest. There's nothing better than a stack fest in
it's a new
DFS.
word. We made this word up. I remember we were brainstorming, workshopping titles for the show, and all these it was really lame titles. And I was like, can't we just make up our own word like Stack Fest? And then Eric was like, yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's good.
That's a winner.
I was
That's
like, okay,
a winner.
well, then let's just print it. Dan, let's go.
Dan is easily persuaded when we throw out the words like Stack Fest. But we're here with week 3 of the Stack Fest. And we were talking a little bit before the show that week 2 honestly couldn't have gone much better for this show. But it was like, that's DFS where we were so close to like literally the absolute stone cold nuts on this show, and just little minor tweaks that could have gotten us to, if you listen to this show and just took what we said last week and like tweaked it a tiny little bit, you could have won like 6 figures, 7 figures last week. So I'm extremely excited.
Well, we didn't give out any exact lineups. We were just like, St. Brown and Samuel is probably a good stack, right? So we were just like, there's a bunch of, whatever it was, Dotson and Swift and Gibson and St. Brown.
Double stack Lamar and bring it back with one of Waddle or Tyreek. Just threw that out there.
Stack that game. Stack that game with one of our take, probably our strongest take was the Washington and Detroit Lions game, that every team that you played needed to have one Washington player and one Detroit Lions player, right? So Amon-Ra, and honestly, you could have made it work with a bunch of Washington players.
Oh yeah,
Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson, Logan Thomas caught a touchdown. Antonio Gibson wasn't great, but you could have made money with running back is so bad. You could have made money with Antonio Gibson.
We had some dead
points.
shark lineups, admittedly. Right? Okay. You're going to have some dead lineups. Okay, fine. You can't. Okay. Not every guy in every game can hit.
My best teams, unfortunately, were Carson Wentz double stacks with Amon-Ra bringbacks, Tyreek, and Mark Andrews, which is like, when you think about it, you're like, damn, that's really good. But then when you also think about the fact that Lamar and Tua both scored like almost 50 points, you can't, and both Dolphins wide receivers scored 45 plus points. You can't come back from that. But
we also talked about that, Eric. We also talked about how untenable Wentz and Goff actually are.
Yeah.
Remember, I spent about 5 minutes trying to justify Wentz or Goff, and then we ended up settling on Wentz because he has a little more mobility. Rushing touchdown was a possibility. So I was like, okay, but you really can't do much of either. You just got to skinny stack this. We iterated on that for like 5 minutes.
I know. We all tried to. We sat here for forever figuring out how to. We had the right. I mean, obviously, the Washington-Detroit game was awesome. We sat here and talked for 20 minutes trying to figure out that game. But ultimately, Dario, we landed on the skinny stack thing, and then with another game stack. And I think this week is that's the intro to me to week 3. Where there isn't all this value available to us in week 3. In week 2, there was, we talked about Ashton Doolin. There was the Bucks value that we kind of didn't like, and Rashad Perriman caught a touchdown, but it wasn't, that was like a pure luck box run out for Rashad Perriman. But you know what I mean? There was value in week 2. In week 3, as it stands right now, there is not that level of value. So the conversation that we had last week is so vitally important to this week from a like macro perspective of how you construct your teams. And I think it's the perfect intro into what we're going to try to talk about in week 3.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, and this week there are more games that stand out as just like really juicy game stacks. I mean, we have the Bills and the Dolphins. That's going to be, projecting to be potentially a huge shootout. The Lions and the Vikings could get very out of control fast and result in a lot of scoring. And then on top of that, it's like you have some high totals for the Rams and the Cardinals, Chiefs and the Colts, and the Eagles and the Commanders are, 2 teams we've been talking about a lot in fantasy. So I think between these 5 games, like we talk about bringing 5 games into this show, and it's like
at most
this group of 5 games is by far the best of the 3 weeks we've done this show so far. So
what is your favorite? What is your, I'm going to now punt it back to you, Dario, your favorite number 1 game stack this week? We've had a fairly clear pecking order, I think, for the last couple of weeks. Is Bills Dolphins,
Mahomes, Kyler, remember that?
Yeah, I mean, we started. It's been a really, honestly, I'm really kind of ashamed because the first 2 weeks I'm not down like real significant money that has like hurt my bankroll, but I haven't won money. And in this show, for 2 straight weeks, we have honestly really just nailed it. Like absolutely freaking nailed it. And so, Dario, what game do we need to focus on to kick off this week? Is it Bills Dolphins?
Yeah, to me it's Bills Dolphins, and it's because the entire Bills starting secondary is injured. Like Micah Hyde, has he been ruled out yet? He hasn't practiced this week. Jordan Poyer was DNP yesterday, and those 2 guys are stud safeties. On top of that, Tre'Davious White is still on PUP, and Dane Jackson, their other starting cornerback, had this serious neck injury on Monday night, and he's obviously hasn't practiced all week. So they've been rolling out these rookie corners, and now they have to face Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and it feels almost like too easy to say, oh, just go do what absolutely smashed last week. But you see the ownership projections for Tua, Waddle, and Tyreek, and the values are passable, and it just seems like, how could you not run it back?
You think we're going to get accused of stack chasing?
Stack chasing, yes, great.
Is that what you don't want to do that, right? You don't want to be caught stack chasing, guys.
Doesn't that feel like a thing that people like? Not smart people. People think though that like, oh, last week the Dolphins got there, and admittedly, the Bills are a good defense. Setting aside what Dario has mentioned about their defensive injuries, right? Poyer, Hyde, Dane Jackson, who's Jordan Phillips? Jordan Phillips is out, correct? Also, they have like really, really serious. Like the Bills have been. You guys know better than me, so please hop in and correct me. But the Bills defense has just been outlandish. Honestly, for what people don't realize is that they were the number 1 DVOA defense last year. I know that like it doesn't seem like that's a real thing. They were a good defense last year.
Oh yeah,
they're better. They're better this year. But at full strength. At full strength, they're better. When you remove those safeties and you remove one of their best front defensive linemen, that definitely changes the equation. So, Matt, how does that change? Because they're not blitzing. How they blitzed? I believe it's 3 times. They blitzed 3 times.
They know what they're doing.
Yes, they're they're running laps around the NFL in terms of how smart of a team, not only play calling but roster construction. The Bills are just brilliant. But
just look at their tendencies, and you can tell they're smart.
They're throwing more. Ken Dorsey is throwing more than Brian Daboll did. Everybody loved Brian. I love Brian Daboll. Who doesn't love Brian Daboll? Ken Dorsey is throwing more than Brian Daboll did. Like Singletary, Moss, it doesn't matter who the hell's back there because they're just going to throw every snap. But if their defense is, let's say, 10th best, 12th best in the NFL, as opposed to literally the best defense, does this game become just like we should go absolutely all in on this game? Or I just, I'm trying to figure out what these defensive things mean because of how consolidated the Dolphins are on that side.
Well, the Bills are last in the league in one important metric. Total necks. Total necks. I'm looking at their defensive line. I don't see any necks at all. No necks. Just I see heads and giant traps and shoulders. No necks at all. So that's the one area they could do bad. They don't have a lot of necks. So here's the thing. If you can get pressure on the quarterback up front, there you go. Look at the Macho Man.
The Macho Man don't have no neck. Hey, the Macho Man don't have no neck. I promise you.
Zero neck in the WWE. So no necks. So that does erase a lot of problems or deficiencies in the secondary if you can get pressure on the quarterback up front. So it's not like the Ravens of last year where this is going to be like a bottom 5 pass defense. That's not going to happen, right? Great defenses become good defenses, especially those that are with well-built rosters. They have depth. Look at who they drafted in the first round, right? They drafted the guys who are going to be playing now. These are first-round picks. Yeah. These guys couldn't even crack the starting lineup as first-round picks. That's how deep and talented this roster is. I mean, in high-stakes leagues, in high-stakes seasonal leagues, the Bills were going like 2 rounds before any other defense. So just to put it in context of how many injuries they would need to really be considered like a juicy matchup in quotes for a running game. Okay. So they're never going to be a good matchup for a running game. I mean, they're like 10 more injuries away from wanting to play like a between the tackles running back against them. Okay. You're not going to want to do that. So then the question is, well, at what point could you play comfortably, feel like this is a good opportunity for members of an opposing passing game? And the requirement is that you have upper level quarterback play against a great defense. And if you have like a Justin Herbert versus a Josh Allen, then they will rise above. They're able to rise above at such a level that no matter how good the defense is, it's really not going to matter. The thing's going to shoot out. Like it's just going to shoot out. You have to just eat it. It's a weird thing though, with this McDaniel offense, he's at least not incompetent, right? So this Eberflus and this Hackett, and it's like Dayball's not even been that great. Actually, he's just been a fun guy to have on the sidelines when they win. Right. But in terms of strategy and tactics, right. At least McDaniel is doing one thing of all these new coaches that have just face planted and broken dreams for all of us that keep thinking, oh, the young coaches and new coaches coming in, they're going to know what they're doing. Maybe if he came from like the Sean McVay system, maybe. But the worry with someone coming from Shanahan, the Shanahan tree, was that they're going to play slow. And that's actually Miami is playing slow. Like their pace of play, 1.8 plays per minute. That's number 28 in the league on Player Profiler. However, they're making up for it with an incredibly high pass to run ratio. So at least he's got that one brain cell, right? McDaniel's got that one brain cell working really well, which is throw the ball. Okay. That at least he's doing. Like Eberflus, these other guys, it's like, forget about it. Like nothing's working. They're dolts. At least he knows to throw the ball. So 41.5 pass attempts per game is top 5 in the league. And Tua's number 1 in passing yards. Tua's number 2 in money throws. He's top 3 in yards per attempt, deep ball completion percentage. So you have to decide, is the guy that was a top 10 pick who Nick Saban picked over Jalen Hurts at one point. That's a thing that happened in the world. Okay. I mean, you could tell kids nowadays, listen, there's a funny story about Jalen Hurts you're never going to believe. But he was fired in college after winning a championship. Like, what?
He was also fired in the national champion. This dude
Dad,
is the quarterback.
that can't be right. I was like, oh yeah, Nick Saban had essentially like the greatest college quarterback if you built him in a lab, and he decided, nah, I can win with this smaller guy who's not as good.
Left for a freshman in the national championship game, and then that dude left.
And
like
it worked, though.
It worked. Yes,
he threw a strike to Devontae Smith down the sideline for a touchdown to win the game. Again, Nick Saban can do no wrong, and that's a topic for a whole other show. Why that's the case. But this is a very different. I mean, that's like a whole inside HBO documentary.
Yes,
one day. So anyway, this is the guy. Right, that Nick Saban decided upon, and he had a broken collarbone, and he lacks pocket awareness and all these things. But they're protecting him. The protection rate is high. He's releasing the ball quickly, right? So you have to think that he's at least at this point in the league a top 10 quarterback. So if you just think about it this way, top 10 quarterback against Josh Allen, the defenses matter a lot less. Then you add the injuries. And this is where Dario has finally come to the conclusion that this is the game to focus on. And again, we've been right every time, but probably a game where Vegas isn't even putting the total high enough.
And so it's already the
Dario,
highest.
I'm gonna share really quickly while you can start to talk through this. I have just the kind of the flex plays, excluding the quarterbacks. From this game up, and we talk about it like coming into the week, everybody is like, oh my god, everybody's gonna flock to this Bills and Dolphins game. There's one person projected on RotoGrinders over 10% on Draftkings. Stefon Diggs, and Stefon Diggs should be priced closer to the superstar wide receivers based on what he's done. And he's 7,700, right? Justin Jefferson and Cooper Kupp are closer to 10K, but there's no one above 8K in this game other than Josh Allen, and we're just looking at the flex guys, and none of these wide receivers are super popular, which leads me to like why this game is so important for us to talk through is because if everyone is not gonna stack this game, like I don't know how to get away from it. Tell me how I'm supposed to.
Diggs is only 1K more than Mike Williams.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, he's 1K more than Jalen Waddle, who I love in this game. It's all these guys. I love Amon-Ra. I'm sure we'll get to Amon-Ra. We'll get to all sorts of these fun plays on this slate.
Can we talk? Sorry to interrupt, Eric. Can we just? What's up with the DraftKings algorithm? Why? Like, why did they because the
don't ask, just be thankful.
I guess it was because I think it was
we get to play Stefon Diggs at 7.
No, I know I'm not supposed to ask this, but like I think what happened was the Buffalo's defensive rating when the prices dropped was very high in their algorithm. I think that's what happened.
Oh, and the Bills played on Monday night. They only had one game to go off of.
That's right.
Diggs crushing. If that game is on Sunday, he's probably priced at like 8,300 this week.
Dario, can I ask a question though about Diggs specifically and the Bills passing game? I need you to summarize the Bills passing game for me in this spot. Stefon Diggs through 2 weeks has been legendary. Obviously, everybody can see that. But Gabriel Davis is telling us he's going to be back this week. I'm not saying that's a big deal, but Gabe Davis versus Jake Kumaro is a pretty
big
significant
drop off there.
Yeah, a pretty significant upgrade. And I'm not trying to be a super hand in the dirt guy, but you put Xavier Howard on Stefon Diggs for the whole game, and you have these other guys against non-Xavier Howard defenders in a game that we're very excited about. How do we just need to jam Diggs even though he has maybe the worst matchup of the bunch, or how do we approach the Bills?
Yeah, in his 2 games against the Bills last year, Diggs had, I think it was 15 and 16 PPR points. So it seems like he's got a floor, but he hasn't hit his ceiling in those games. And yeah, we definitely have to have, a decent amount of respect / fear toward Xavier Howard. But I think you have to play Diggs. Like any lineup that is stacking this game, like you should have Diggs in it at least 90% of the time, maybe 80.
85. I was going to say 85. It's funny you said
yeah,
that.
I was choosing between 80 and 90. And then I think, Jake Kumaro is very interesting if Davis misses this game again, because he's only priced at 3,000. So he's going to become that Ashton Doolin freebie of the slate if that does come to pass.
Right.
And I think, McKenzie is another guy who we've seen him have just like absolutely nuclear weeks, and that, we project, everyone was projecting him to take over that slot role. He hasn't really done that yet, but I think that he's a guy who you probably want to mix in for the double stacks. And I think that Dawson Knox is totally underpriced this week. He's like 4,100 or something.
Thank you. I was waiting. I was poised, man. You can see me like a panther in the jungle.
He's less than like okay.
I was like, we're doing Knox this week, right?
What are the like if I had to give you odds on like Dawson Knox outscoring Mike Gesicki, like what is that? Like minus 200?
Yeah. It's a lot.
He's priced
it's huge.
cheaper.
Feels like a Knox week, dude. It really does.
How the hell is Mike Gesicki more expensive than Dawson Knox?
Yeah.
No, I'm telling you, the algorithm doesn't factor in the pricing algorithm doesn't factor in the snap share. It really doesn't, or how much tight ends are blocking when they're out there, or how little that they're actually throwing to tight ends. I mean, get out of here with Gesicki. He's useless. Dawson Knox, though, hell yeah.
I mean, I'm even okay with like Durham Smythe dart throw anyone. Like he's been on the field as much as Gesicki. If you're like really jamming in all the expensive plays into your lineup, like maybe just like you're looking for a min price tight end, like you could do worse than Smythe this week.
I don't know, man. We have other games that we like. Isn't the Kansas City Indianapolis game one of the games we like?
Yes,
we have many other games we like.
Is there a tight end in that game we like?
Oh, just that guy. What's his name? Starts with a K, I think.
Yeah.
Don't
get
me
the
started
clear number one on his team.
Yeah, don't get me started on Kylan Granson. I played him on way too many teams last week, and it was the greatest setup ever for Kylan Granson to be the 1% owned smash last week, and it did not come through. But I
like the process, though. That's a good process.
Yeah, that's what I always tell myself when I lose. You had a good process, bad results. This game, if you are stacking this game, two-part questions, and I'm going to put it to Matt first. Josh Allen or Tua? So it's tough this week. If you've built some lineups, it's very tough, like value-wise. And Josh Allen is very expensive on both sides. Do you go to Josh Allen clearly has more raw upside and a higher raw projection, but do you need to go down to Tua if you're stacking this game? And B, maybe a question that most people wouldn't think about: can you stack this game without Stephon Diggs and go to the Dawson Knoxes, the Gabe Davises, the Isaiah McKenzies, the whatever Devin Singletaries, you guys pick? I'll let you guys talk through that, but can you get a little different, because Diggs is the one guy that people are actually going to play in this game. People don't seem to be excited, as I clicked a wide receiver, don't seem to be excited about Tyreek and Waddle and Gabe and McKenzie and all those guys. How are you handling it if you're, again, let's just use the 150. If you're playing a portfolio of teams, how do you go about stacking this game?
Well, the ownership on Tua is much lower, right? It's like a third. Is that right?
Yeah, 4.8 to 12. So
Right.
yeah, a third.
So yeah, and the salary difference is huge, and the stacking options are more diverse and actually have a total upside with your stacking, Knox and Diggs versus Waddle and Hill. The total upside of the receivers is higher in Miami. So, yeah, I think you're going to skew at least 60-40 Tua, if not more. And because this is a tighter slate with pricing, it's a further disincentives the Josh Allen plays. Though, clearly there's going to be, it's very possible you close your eyes and it's actually easier to envision a team taking down the Millie Maker, and you open your eyes and it's like, oh yeah, of course he played these guys that we didn't see with Allen. Right. So it's like, yeah, maybe like the pure unadulterated raw nuts lineups will have more Allen.
Say that again.
But if you're trying to hit the pay line, right? If you're just trying to have money making lineups, then if in terms of distribution, it's much harder to justify Allen. It's if you're hunting value, Tua's one of the great values on the slate. So I don't know why you would overthink that.
Dario, do you have concerns even with the Bills defensive injuries, with not chasing points? That's what people will say, right? Is you're chasing points with
stack
Tua.
Chasing.
Yes, you're stack chasing with Tua. But do you have any concerns with the Tua, not even double stack, but say you want a single stack Tua with a Diggs bring back or a Gabe bring back or a Knox bring back? Yeah. Do you have any concerns about this matchup for him?
My default answer, like in fantasy, anytime anyone asks you, do you have any concerns about blank? Answers always like, yeah, obviously, like there's like
aren't you worried?
A million reasons to be concerned about everyone.
I'm always worried. Yes, I'm always worried.
But I think that, we know that Tua gets the ball out quick. That's like one of his things. He doesn't like being hit, and I wouldn't either if I've had his injury history. And
by the way, but hold on, Dario. By the way, on playerprofiler.com, we have offensive line rankings. And in those rankings, we had the time to throw for every offensive line. And if you're going to nullify a front seven, there's far fewer injuries in their front seven than their secondary, it's going to be those quarterbacks that can, with the quick releases.
Yeah.
So this is setting up, like I said, we've hit this from every angle, this reminds me of that Cardinals Chiefs game from week 1, where we literally hitting it from every angle. It's like, hey guys, this is a good game to play. Like I think case closed, right? The defense rests, Your Honor. Right. and this is just another reason why, like, if there's going to be a quarterback that's probably going to have some success against this defense, it's someone that can get it out that quickly. His hurry rate, the Miami Dolphins are Tua's getting hurried at just a 7% rate. So,
yeah. And one thing, I listened to Ben Solak on the Athletic podcast, kind of a film bro, if you will, but he was talking about how with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, you have speed that no other receivers have. So when other quarterbacks do a quick 3-step drop, you're looking at like an 8-yard slant. But when Tua's hitting a 3-step drop, you're looking at a 15-yard dig route already, because Tyreek Hill's just already further down the field than you would think a receiver could be. And same thing with Jalen Waddle. So I think that they're going to put a lot of stress on these rookie corners of the Bills. And I would be shocked if this game went under. Like, I think these two teams are going to be chasing points, and we haven't seen anyone stop Josh Allen this entire calendar year. So I don't think that's going to end either. And this game is just going to be like scoring drive after scoring drive.
Yeah. Did anyone think like, oh, Miami's got a good defense? I mean, it's better than we thought it would be. Their offensive line's better than we thought it would be too. Fine.
Yeah, but fine doesn't. The Rams have a fine defense, and Josh Allen, they didn't slow. Like it didn't matter for Josh Allen. It's a divisional
game. Like, how many things, Your Honor?
Yeah.
I like that. Your Honor, yes. Your Honor. Gavel.
With the defense rests.
To put a bow on it, I think based on our ownership projections, again, this could change. Sunday morning will come. maybe we'll change the conversation. This is the best game of the slate, in my opinion. And not only because we talked about this last week, we talked about this with the Dolphins, Ravens. When you get games that don't even need to necessarily go nuclear to win you the slate because they are condensed and they are high pass rate teams. That's what happened with the Ravens and the Dolphins last week, right? The Ravens, they scored, so it just so happened to be, elevated. But you get one long bomb to Bateman. You get a couple of bombs to Tyreek. We literally outlined this last week. We could have outlined the winning GPP team last week. We were like, well, if Tyreek catches the bomb and Lamar runs for a long touchdown, he did. Tyreek caught 2 long ones, and it's condensed on both sides, which is what you get with the Dolphins and what you get with the Bills. It's just like sometimes you have to get your hand out of the dirt, get your hand out of the spreadsheet, right? And just be like, these 2 offenses are amazing. It's condensed, and we'll live to fight another day next week if it doesn't totally win you a tournament. It's kind of how I'm viewing it.
And I think that, I would have expected just any Dolphins stack to be chalkier than it currently projects to be after last week. But I think the reason we're not seeing that is that you have this influx of quarterback talent to the main slate. Like you can choose to play Hurts or Mahomes or Kyler. So there's people that are like, I think overlooking Tua like we did last week. Just because, I would just, leave it at that. Like I thought that this would be much more popular right out of the gate. So if it's already somewhat unique and has all the pros that you just outlined, like I think you have to stack heavily on it.
Totally. So, Matt, sorry.
I think one more point here.
Yes.
One more point. We haven't talked about Chase Edmonds. Last year, the Buffalo Bills, on average, this is crazy, were minus 2.51 fantasy points per game against running backs in the passing game. Running backs as receivers could do nothing against the Bills last year because they have the best sideline to sideline linebackers, and that's not an area where they've experienced injuries. So I think that's still going to be a problem for Edmonds. So this is probably not an Edmonds week against this particular linebacking core. So we probably just have to fight another day on Edmonds and have that conversation another day. We still believe he's good. This just may not be the week.
Good to actually put a bow on it. Can you play running backs so if everyone wants to play the passing game from both of these teams, Raheem Mostert's only 4,500 on DraftKings. I have it up here. Sorry, I should have had it up before. 4,500. He stole a little bit of that backfield last week. Can you play any Raheem Mostert, and can you play any Devin Singletary at 5,600? What do you guys think?
Yes, Devin Singletary. No to Mostert.
I would be light on Singletary. And I think Mostert, you can take some dart throws, but I'm definitely fading Edmonds. I think we talked about last week's show how he was good process, bad outcome at week 1. And then week 2, the usage totally face planted. I was like, seeing all those Raheem Mostert carries was crushing my all my portfolio and my soul.
Same. Yeah.
So I think that I wouldn't lean too heavily on it, but because like when the Bills get in the red zone, it's Josh Allen that's going to run into touchdowns. We know that. And we haven't seen the Dolphins really run the ball in the red zone either, because you can throw it to Tyreek or Waddle, and Gesicki happens to be like 6'6" and 250 pounds or whatever. So I would say generally no on the running backs for this game. There's going to be better options.
I will only counter before we move on to the next game with Mostert is so cheap that he still, even despite the long odds against this defense, could rip one if he gets the 15 carries. That he's not going to be in any of my main lineups. I'll tell you that right now. But if you want to mix him in, I think to some tournament teams at 4,500 on DraftKings that I think he makes a little bit of sense to have some of him in your portfolio. If he's gonna catch 2 passes and get 12 carries, just a little bit at 4,500, because pricing is so tight. How do you get Diggs, Tyreek, and some other guys we're going to talk about, especially in this next game? How do you get those guys? If you get the Mostert 60-yard touchdown run, which he can do. He can do. I know the Bills are a brutal matchup, but he can do it against anybody. I like a little bit of Mostert. Why
Singletary on the double run back is also fine.
Yes.
Listen, man. Listen. This is a stack fest. You want to add more players from our favorite game? Like, by all means.
Keep it going. By all means. Why are we talking about this game?
Once upon a time, someone won the Millie Maker. I just want to remember, just a way back machine. Many may not remember this. The kids certainly will not. But about 5 years ago, someone won the Millie Maker playing 6 Bears. They played 6 Bears. It was like Tariq Cohen, and it was the craziest lineup you've ever seen. So that's a thing that happened once. So, I've seen it all.
My favorite thing about we've talked about this game for a long time, and now we're talking about Tariq Cohen, who's obviously not on this slate, but that guy who won the Millie with Tariq Cohen got interviewed by like a bunch of papers and stuff. He's just average Joe Schmo Bears fan, and was like, I went to training camp one time and they were using this Cohen guy. He was like, damn, he looks good. He looks really explosive, but he was like, I'm going to play him.
Yeah, with like Jimmy Graham at tight end, and the Bears
two of his breakout season or something like that, right?
Exactly.
And he stacked the whole goddamn thing and took it down.
And they scored 40 points.
And it was wild.
And he was a Bears fan,
6 Bears.
And so, but point being, if you can get that offense like this game presents to us on both sides that are going to score some freaking points, exposure to kind of all these guys. Like Devin Singletary doesn't look good, but we saw down the stretch of last year what happens if perfect example. Last week we talked about Devontae Adams, remember? And he didn't do shit. He was one of the highest owned. He was one of the highest owned players on the entire slate, and we talked at length about what happens when Devontae doesn't do something, or maybe there's a pass interference in the end zone, or maybe there's this, that, the other thing. What does that mean when they're still scoring points? For the Bills, they're scoring points. We don't have to worry about that. They're scoring points.
And Devin Singletary is out there more than he's not.
Exactly. So at the end of the year last year, that dude was had multiple 2-touchdown games. Am I expecting that? Of course not. And his usage certainly does not, curtail what that would be for this week. But what happens when they score 40 points and they're at the 1-yard line and they hand it off to Devin Singletary, and he's, as we see on the screen, 2% owned? You win. So all of these guys in this game, in my opinion, probably outside of Chase Edmonds, I don't really think I want to do Chase Edmonds, who's actually the highest owned running back. But all of these guys, this game, I think, warrant ownership. And that's why we talked about him for so long, because this game is like, it's crazy. The
producers in my ear. Sorry, it was 5 Bears. It was not 6 Bears.
5. Yes,
5 Bears.
5.
Correction, 5 Bears.
God forbid.
Want to make sure we get our facts right on the craziest lineup to ever win the Millie Maker.
If 5 Bears win the slate this week, I'm gonna retire. You won't. We're gonna have to get a new. We're gonna have to get a new host for this. for this show. All right.
Any Millie Maker lineup has more than 3 Bears this year, I'll be shocked.
3. Honestly, if it has 3, the Bears are playing the Texans. Here's how crazy it is. The Bears are playing this. We have 5 games we're going to try to get through. We have 4 left.
We're not.
We're not going to get through. The Bears are playing the Texans, a team that we've just pretty much lined up to play players against, and we're not even talking about the Bears because they refuse to play competitive football. They're not interested in playing actual real football that scores us fantasy points. A game now, finally moving on to another game that is interested in playing fantasy, scoring environment. Lions and the Vikings. The Vikings. This is another.
Yep.
This is so similar to last week.
Skinny stack the Lions.
Lions are the Lions are who we thought they were.
Right. Yes.
Hey guys, I got something to tell you here. The Lions are on the slate. You want to skinny stack that bad boy?
So Lions Vikings. How do we, Dario? Please tell me how I play Justin Jefferson with either Amon-Ra or DeAndre Swift, or I guess maybe TJ Hawkinson, but I'm not really that interested. But honestly, I'm very interested in how the hell you can let me play Amon-Ra and Justin Jefferson together in a lineup, because that one feels pretty fun to me.
Yeah, I think you would just have to, put Ashton Doolin in your flex spot in order to be able to afford it. Maybe have a Doolin and Dortch and Mostert lineup so that we can afford all these
there we go,
expensive stacks. But no, yeah, I think that as this has been the story every week with the Lions. Like, there's Amon-Ra, there's Swift, Hawkinson, Chark, and then I think because the quarterbacks are so good on this slate, it lines up perfectly to be a skinny stack game. If this is last week, I think we're talking about stacking Cousins. But with all the quarterbacks to choose from this week,
yeah, that's a great point. I was going to ask you that.
You need to just say, forget Cousins, forget Goff. Like, I want to have the elite quarterbacks in my lineups, and they're in a good spot. Don't get me wrong, but like, I think that you have to just say, okay, we're gonna get some Jefferson and get some Swift and get some Chark and some Amon-Ra, and then we're just gonna bake that into the player pool on the side, and it's like the seasoning on your main game stack.
Matt, what's your favorite way to attack this game?
Man, I can't. They're gonna. The buzzards are gonna come after me. They're gonna come after you, but I mean, Chark, man, some weeks
we're doing Chark again.
Some weeks he's a decoy. Some weeks he goes boom. That's just what it is. That's the beauty. If you have a portfolio and you've got 60% St. Brown and 40% Chark, whatever, or not that, because you also have Swift, double skinny stacks, whatever. But like, there's gonna be weeks. It can't be St. Brown every week. It can't be. I know it feels like it could
for
be
8 weeks straight.
I know it feels like it could be
a year and a half of it. Can't be.
I know Allen Robinson again. People are gonna be saying the same thing. Like, yeah, one of these weeks, Cup's not gonna go for 30. I know, but it's true. It's actually true. It just depends on how they play. Unfortunately, more and more teams are playing, corners and cover 3 and just taking away these deep threat wide receivers, especially the bigger ones. They can't get over the top with these double safety looks. And basically it's just like begging you to just feed St. Brown, slot receivers, flankers, just boom, 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 boom. And they just take the X receiver away. I don't know exactly how they're going to handle this with the Vikings. The defense has been better than they were last year, and they've certainly upgraded across the board. They've upgraded the front 7, they upgraded the secondary. But if Chark gets any kind of man coverage on the outside, they're gonna go play action and they're gonna throw to him. It's gonna happen. We'll see. We'll see.
Chark did have 8 targets and 4 for 52 and a touchdown in week 1. He also had 4 targets and 0 catches.
Decoy
in week 2.
That's a decoy line right there.
And it was all Amon-Ra. Obviously, we also see Irv Smith as the second highest owned player in this game, and I wanted to touch on him a little bit because I think people are going to look at the box score and say, holy cow, Irv had a bunch of touches. He's very cheap. He's clearly too talented for, the $3,100 price tag on DraftKings. But I think it was a little of, kind of tomfoolery, if you will. They were just getting boat raced by the Eagles. what is your kind of approach to this game? I know we love Amon-Ra and we love Justin Jefferson, but how do we kind of attack this game from a portfolio perspective?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's going to be hard to build good lineups around Amon-Ra and Jefferson because they are so expensive. So I think that probably most of my lineups will end up looking like one, Justin Jefferson with a Chark or with a Hawkinson, and then an Amon-Ra with an Irv Smith or an Adam Thielen, or even Dalvin Cook. Because Dalvin Cook is a full, what is it, like $1,200 cheaper than Jefferson? Is it more than that? Oh, it's
$1,400. $1,400 less. Yep.
Yeah.
And he is He is the fourth highest. Oh no, I lied. Fifth highest priced running back behind Eckler, behind Henry, and obviously behind JT and McCaffrey. And
Dalvin Cook at home against the Lions. Yeah. Okay, it's Dalvin Cook. I mean, there was no analytics, guys. Okay, I'm not on Player Profiler. I just know Dalvin Cook against the Lions at home is a good idea. All right.
Yeah.
So
that's
Cook and Chark. That's
you
wanted me to ask me how I'm attacking this. Cook and Chark. Okay.
That's a great leverage way
Cook
to
and
play.
Chark fight me. Cook and Chark fight me.
All right, should we go on to the Rams and the Cardinals? We got.
I thought Dario was going to fight Matt. I was waiting for Dario to fight. No, I'm kidding.
By the way, I'm not playing Hawkinson, guys.
Agreed.
Dude, Hawkinson's looking real fake. I mean, Hawkinson's working out with Kittle, right? And I know he's trying to be the next Kittle and everything, but I don't think he's it. I think it's Goddard. I think Goddard's that guy. There can only be one guy every year. It's Goddard. Okay, Goddard's that guy. It's not Hawkinson. And probably I don't know if it's ever going to be Hawkinson. Hawkinson's looking like a bust.
I agree. Hawkinson will be a guy maybe if we ever get the price to fall that we'll start talking about. But the price is a little tough. Next game, Rams and Cardinals. We're just going to talk about Cardinals games every
I was thinking that too.
Every single week. The defense is just that bad. The defense somehow held up in the second half of last week, and they also held Devontae Adams in check. But I can't imagine that they're going to hold the Rams in check. Dario, Cooper Kupp is this is kind of the theme. How do we fit the guys who are the best plays in some of these matchups? And that's what Cooper Kupp is. And the Rams backfield is a shit show now. Cam Akers really got a lot more work maybe than most people expected. Tyler Higbee has gotten priced up. The Cardinals bounced back a little bit in the second half, but it was Greg Dortch. Like, how do we go about this game? We see some fireworks, but for DFS purposes, it's kind of tricky.
Yeah, I mean, and it's the Cardinals have had their offense just be more confusing because of injuries so far this season, and that doesn't stop this week. James Conner, I think, did they say he's going to be a game time decision?
Yep.
And then Rondale Moore, has he been ruled out yet? I know
he's out. He's out
again. Okay.
So by the way, Eno Benjamin is another one of your salary savers this week with the price.
Darrell Williams too. They split pretty evenly, so roll the dice on one of those guys.
Do you have so they split in a weird, in kind of an awkward way. Do you have a lean on the two of them? If now it's an afternoon game, which makes it more difficult, but if someone leaves open some swaps, do you have a preference between the two of Eno and Darrell?
I am not sure that I do. I think honestly, this is where it comes down to who's cheaper and what does it let you do with the rest of the lineup. Because I think that
Darrell is 5,100 on DraftKings and Eno is 4,700 on DraftKings.
4.75 for Eno, man.
Yeah, I don't think that Darrell should be that much more expensive. It's not much, but it's, like we said, they're literally splitting the backup role 50-50. So probably going to lean more towards Eno in that case.
Hey, Eric, I have to disagree. I'm able to build some killer lineups on DraftKings as long as I just don't play a defense.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think you're wrong about that. I think it's easy to build lineups this year.
We already got rid of
the kicker. Just don't play a defense.
We already got rid of the kicker. We might as well just
that's the way to do it. You know, you can play Dalvin, you can play Diggs, Waddle, no problem. Right?
Don't play
I
a
think
tight end either.
the
while
guy
you're
I'm
at it.
playing from this game first and foremost is Marquise Brown.
Okay.
Marquise Brown.
I'm not
overthinking it, right?
Okay.
There's no other receivers. I know Greg Dortch is a guy who plays. He's in games. I get it. But if we just threw out the first two games and all those expectations that we had around Marquise Brown, right? And we just were looking at it for what it is, that he's running, he's running all the routes, 40 routes, 47 routes. He's averaging, 8.5 targets per game, right? He had one game with over 100 air yards already. He just isn't delivering, right? The big fantasy point outcomes that you want. So it's like a bunch of people played him for a couple weeks. It wasn't that exciting, but if you just reset and this was week 1, it would be so on, right? And it's not like, Jalen Ramsey, he's a big physical guy. He's not a guy. You can't put Jalen Ramsey on him. Like, they have to bracket cover. They have to try to do creative stuff. But the problem with the Jalen Ramsey is he's going to try to talk his way into guarding Marquise Brown one-on-one, right? He's going to actually talk his way into getting abused deep.
Like Diggs did.
He just runs right by him.
That's what's going to happen. I mean, the last year the Rams were actually top 10 in the league in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. So when you just look at some of these basic stats, then it's like, I think I want to play Marquise Brown actually, and maybe only Marquise Brown. So there's plenty of these lineups where we're focused on these other games where if you can find a way to sneak Marquise Brown in alone from this game, do it. Just $6K on DraftKings.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on.
No, yeah, and I think
I like that.
When you're looking at the box scores, you're like, he scored even less in week 2 than week 1. But I'd say week 2 is more encouraging than week 1, right? You saw the 11 targets and you saw more air yards. Like, I think that the usage in week 1 was puzzling. Why did Greg Dortch get 9 targets and Marquise Brown got 6? But it kind of reverted back to the way it should be with Brown getting 11. And, you're going to find the end zone in some games and you're not going to find the end zone in other games. We know that it's fluky. So we shouldn't overreact to him. Like, if he has a touchdown in this second game and no touchdown in the first game and he's coming off of that instead, we'd be like, okay, wheels up on Marquise Brown. We had nothing to worry about all along. So I think you're right. Stick to the process.
Question from Joe is the Higbee volume, is that for real? Is that something that we should be mixing in? Because on one hand, it feels like just total phantom weak volume. But on the other hand, it's tight end. And that is brutal to find any form of volume. And as Matt outlined on this exact show last week, remember the Arizona Cardinals versus the tight end narrative. Yeah. And it's like, if this game is exciting and maybe Hollywood catches a long bomb or something like that, can we play Higbee at this? Honestly, it feels just clicking Tyler Higbee at 4,500 makes my stomach turn. But look, when this loads, 11 and 9 targets, and they were winning that 9 targets in a game. They were winning by multiple touchdowns against Atlanta. I don't know. Can we play Tyler Higbee?
Tight end on DraftKings, and he's a top 5 tight end in ownership percentage projected on RotoGrinders per Chris Cimino on Fanduel. I don't know, man. I don't know. I know that it doesn't contribute that much to your overall ownership. When we're looking at tight end and quarterback, matter way less. But I mean, if you're just talking about like if you're already feeling queasy about it, and then you look at the ownership, and it's like, it doesn't make me feel better. It doesn't make me feel better that, oh wow, okay, I guess
I'd much rather play Ertz at 4,600 and 5% ownership. Like, you can find $100.
Isn't Uzoma out this week?
Yes.
Isn't Conklin 3.8? Isn't Conklin have more targets than even Higbee?
Yeah, Conklin's
close.
Crushing.
He's close for sure. He's close for sure. Also, if I told you, I'm not trying to set us aside from our game stack theme of the week. If I told you 3 weeks ago, Kyle Pitts would be $300 more than Tyler Higbee against the Seahawks, and Kyle Pitts was. Hold on, let's sort by projected ownership.
Oh, the
Tyler
ownership
Higbee
is going to be hilarious here.
Tyler Higbee, highest owned tight end. Kyle Pitts, not on the first page of ownership. We got to scroll past Juwan Johnson and past Evan Ingram and past Hayden Hurts to get to Kyle Pitts ownership. You know, it's like, and Dario mentioned Zach Ertz. We got to scroll down a whole page to get to these other guys who are the same or better than Tyler Higbee. I can't personally do it. If Tyler Higbee buries me on Sunday, we'll show up next week and I will say congratulations to the Tyler Higbee guys, and it's all good. I can live with
4.7, dude, and we love that game too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I mean, enough with Higbee
right.
target chasing. Like enough.
Well, a game we need to get to as we're running overtime per usual.
Well, listen, but by the way, on this game, I also don't hate Allen Robinson. Right, the Cardinals get absolutely torched by outside wide receivers. They have some of the weakest outside corners in the league. If I'm the Cardinals, I'm putting my best corner, Byron Murphy, who is a slot corner, on Cooper Kupp, and that should open up Allen Robinson. But at similar price point, I'd rather go with Marquise Brown. So that's why I'm not going to be as in on Robinson, just because Brown is too close in salary. But he's a fine option as well. But yeah, I mean, this Eagles game is interesting because there, at least in that game, we have a quarterback we want to play.
Yeah.
Let's do the Eagles game then, because we have Eagles Commanders, and we, as you mentioned, we definitely want to play Jalen Hurts. What he has been doing is just absolutely off the charts. But I also want to play like every Eagles player. Like you mentioned Goddard. I want to play Goddard. I want to play Jalen Hurts. I want to play AJ Brown. I want to play Devonta Smith. I want to play Miles Sanders. The Commanders, I'm a little squeamish about them against finally a good defense. But Dario, can I stack this game, or is Eagles defense in our midst? What's your kind of approach to this game?
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely stack this game, because I think, like you said, you double stack Hurts.
Dario, hold on. You could stack this game lightly, but you're not going to go full game stack. You're not going to go that aggressive.
I mean,
remember week one again? Remember Chargers Raiders? Remember the warning I gave you for Chargers Raiders? I said what could happen in this game is this Chargers defense could prevent Derek Carr from going nuclear and shooting this thing out. You got to watch out, because there was it was the mismatch of the week was the Chargers front seven against that Raiders offensive line. This Eagles defense is almost too good to allow for you, especially against Carson Wentz. At some point, again, it's like Cook against the Lions. You need to all take a step back and say, what are we talking about here?
But it's a Carson Wentz revenge game, Matt.
No, Dario, no. I think that when we talk about game stacking, yeah, certainly you're going to run it back with someone. But when we're talking about these double run backs and whatnot, no way.
I don't think this is a game for a double run back.
No, I don't know. I don't want to play multiple. I want to just say, I think you could go Hurts Goddard with a nice little baby run back on the other side and call it a day. Or just Hurts Brown with Gibson. I think that's fine. If you just want to play three people from this game, and that's the thing. Whenever you have a super mobile quarterback, it lends itself a little bit less to going all in, because the quarterback, by rushing in the touchdown, is not able to distribute the fantasy points out across a spectrum of skill position players.
Yeah.
The way, when you have a 5 touchdown game from Cousins, what that actually does to the whole team, and you actually needed to game stack that thing aggressively. With Lamar and Hurts and Kyler, you're more it's a more surgical stacking exercise. I just want to be clear about that, especially when you have a Hurts with this defense going against Washington, and that is a mismatch.
No, yeah, I think I'm going to have to disagree with you and say that I would be looking to double stack Hurts in this game, but I think, like you said, it's certainly not anything that calls for a double run back like the Bills and Dolphins game, or like you can get really creative with all the pieces in the Lions Vikings game. I think you can build a lineup around Hurts, Goddard, Devonta Smith, or Hurts, Miles Sanders, AJ Brown, bring it back with like Curtis Samuel, and then look for your secondary pieces elsewhere. I think that's still a strong play this week.
Do you have if you were going to bring a Washington guy back on a Hurts stack, do you have a preference? I mean, I'm not trying to draw anything from small sample too much, but when Darius Slay makes Justin Jefferson look like DJ, look like Matt's guy DJ Chark, is he gonna follow around McLaurin, and does that open up a Samuel or a Dotson or something? Is there any? I'm just leading into anything. Is there something we can glean from that?
I think that probably Samuel and Dotson are my top two picks. Logan Thomas got involved last week, and he's only 3,500 at 2% projected ownership. So I think that Logan Thomas is, I mean, we talked about how there are much better tight end options on the slate, but I think if you're going cheap, Logan Thomas to bring back an Eagles stack is definitely a decent place to be. So I think that's how I would approach that from Washington side, is Dotson or Samuel tricky, or Thomas.
It's like Slay on one side, James Bradbury on the other. There's no good answers against this defense. That is the problem. The nice thing about Dotson is 100% route participation. The guy is in there on every snap, right? He's got a top 15 snap share. That's why routes and snaps, if he's getting separation, I think they can flip flop him and Samuel on the right hand side.
He has 3 touchdowns in 2 games.
I think that he could get the targets this week, right? And I think that he can get off Bradbury. It's going to be easier for him to get off Bradbury by moving inside than it is for McLaurin to get off Slay. So this just, I don't know. I don't know exactly what the matchups are going to look like and how the defense is going to scheme, how Philly's defense is going to scheme. My guess is they're just going to play this team straight up and just say, we're better. We're going to win. That I think does lend itself to Dotson. Maybe getting a little bit of a target boost, getting maybe 8 targets this week. It's very possible. And, I close my eyes and I can imagine a new conversation after this week where everyone's like, oh, wait, Dotson's now in this conversation among the top rookie receivers in this class.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. One thing I will honestly piggyback on what you guys have said that is maybe my weirdly favorite play in this game. When we go into a game and we say the Eagles look awesome on offense, we want to play every Eagles offensive player, but we're struggling to figure out the Washington side of the ball. The Eagles defense in fantasy is 4% owned at 2,900. They're one of the, in my opinion, we've talked about this for 2 weeks now. This is the 3rd week we talked about it. The Eagles are loaded. We saw
loaded. Loaded. Close your eyes, dude. I'm asking people to close their eyes. You open your eyes, and you could easily see 2 things, both being true. Dotson being viewed as one of the top receivers from this class, and all the analysts on NFL Network going, Carson Wentz is who we thought he was.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I love that.
Oh, 3 picks. Yeah. Oh, that's what we thought. Oh,
3 picks, a pick 6, a strip sack fumble, right? Like if we woke up on
Close
Monday,
your eyes, Eric.
That's it. Literally, I'm about to take myself off the stream really quick and close my eyes and dream about this. But that's what I envision, is literally Carson Wentz being Carson Wentz on Sunday and this awesome defense blowing him up. And what that means to me is actually 2 things. The Eagles defense and Miles Sanders. And Miles Sanders is not someone that's super fun to play. They're in a 3-way timeshare. Boston Scott's going to get touches. Kenny Gainwell's going to get touches. But if the Eagles defense dominates, kind of like the Lions dominated for most of that game, and look what happened.
Now
look
we're
what
talking,
happened.
dude. Now we're talking. I like this is how you sometimes could play because you're going to skinny stack this game. You could play just Eagles with Sanders or Eagles, Sanders, Dotson. And that's nice. You're going to save some money that way.
100%. And how do you fit these other guys? We've literally talked through every single game. It was like, how the hell do I fit Bills Dolphins? How do I fit Justin Jefferson? How do I fit Amon-Ra? How do I fit Cooper Kupp? And it's like, well, we just found it. Save some money in this game and hope that the Eagles just boat race the Commanders. And I think that that's realistic. Let's wrap it up with this game. I really want to hear your guys' thoughts on this game. And I also want to, Dario, pull up your guys' tool on this one because I want to see the game stack kind of potential on Chiefs Colts because you guys
thank you for mentioning
wrong.
this game. We almost forgot about this game. It's a great game.
We'll put a bow on the show with Chiefs Colts. Tell me how the Chiefs are not going to score again like a billion points this week. But it's similar to week 1 in that yes, Travis Kelce looks good, but this week, as opposed to week 1, Travis Kelce's 7,900 on DraftKings. It's a little bit more tricky. Again, kind of the theme of the show. How do I fit him? How do I fit Patrick Mahomes at almost 8K? And what receiver do I play? How do I stack this game when I know or feel like I know that the Chiefs are just going to score a ton of points, but I want to attack this game? And I feel like this is where this tool that you guys have just comes perfectly into play because I want to load up on Chiefs when I know that they're going to score like 40 points, but I don't know how to attack it in tournaments.
Yeah, it's like we know that one of Mecole Hardman or MVS is going to go nuclear, so just try to guess which one. I think that, I mean, we'll start off with the Kelce stat because that's like, what you have to do with Mahomes. And then I think why don't we just see what the optimizer finds and say we want to stack at least 2 with Mahomes. And then I think that Nyheim Hines, with the amount of garbage time that we're seeing or we're expecting to see from the Colts in this game, is going to be very much in play. He's only,
if not now, when on Nyheim Hines? Honestly, for his entire career, like if you have him in Dynasty, if you're not starting Hines in Dynasty this week, drop him.
Yes, agreed.
So this is interesting. We got no bring back here. We didn't force the bring back. We were just gonna let it see if it happened. And this went with a double tight end. Robert Tonyan at 3,700 is another strong bargain. We know that none of the Packers receivers are healthy. And then Ben Skoranek, I think I had a dream last night that Ben Skoranek was in a major winning lineup for this slate. So take that with a grain of salt. But I think that Ben Skoranek is my gut feel. No absolute reason to like this play, but I think something good might happen for him.
You need to do something before you go to bed to help with those dreams.
And then let's see, we got a Justin Watson lineup.
Before you run this, Dario, next time, can you please take out these guys we know aren't going to play, like James Conner? If a guy is a Q tag, let's take him out of there with a serious injury. I can't even look at this with him in there.
Can you force a bring back? I
want
to
see
what.
Force a bring back.
Let's force.
Can we say maximum of 1 tight end?
Yeah, max 1 tight end and force a bring back.
Let's pick our flex then. Running back or wide receiver?
Wide receiver flex.
Wide receiver.
Yeah.
See, this is why we have these settings.
And then, what?
Can we say no? Exclude player James fucking Conner. Okay. Thank you. Okay. See, this is why. You know what this tool is? This is a shut up Podfather tool. This is a shut the hell up. We have you covered, bro. Look at this.
This looks good. This looks good. Okay, let's now go back and exclude Paris.
Can we exclude Paris Campbell? Where's Doolin?
Well, Paris Campbell is cheaper than Doolin this week.
Well, he scored 0
this
points.
He should be. Though. This is a shut up. Can't you put Doolin in there? Put Doolin in there and shut me up.
Doolin's more expensive than Campbell this week. We're not going to be able to fit him in this lineup.
Well, if you did it, what would happen? Oh, it won't show.
It won't only show guys that are cheaper. So we'd have to say we go off of
go another lineup. Go forward. Go forward one lineup. I got to get totally shut up and shut down.
Oh no, it's still Paris Campbell.
Another one. Oh, because you're forcing her. It's forcing.
Well,
he's
got
to
a
play Paris
60%
Campbell.
exposure in
You
these
got to
lineups.
exclude. You got to exclude Paris.
Now we got to exclude Paris Campbell.
Oh man, I think this is something that I was talking to Frank about.
How did you?
I don't know.
Play Connor.
I don't know
over
how to
Campbell.
exclude. Okay.
We'll let Connor get in there.
I'd rather Connor.
Did I say you were projecting Campbell for 11.5 points?
Did you know that he had 0 last week when they didn't have?
Are you really projecting him for 11.5?
Well, that's his. I think that might be his upside projection. His median projection is 7.
Okay, we'll go to the projections. Sort of. Anyway,
we've excluded him. Let's see what happens.
You know what? He is running all the routes.
Yeah, he ran.
I mean,
he's running more routes than
fucking
Doolin.
Chris Hogan. Pardon my French. He's Chris. He's Chris Hogan.
When I was doing projections this week, I said I'll give him one more week to be better than Doolin.
This works.
Michael Pittman, Nicole Hardman, and Travis Kelce from this game. Ben Skoranek finds his way in again. And then
Skoranek better hit, dude. Go next. Do the next one.
If Skoranek has 2 touchdowns, like imagine how much the viewership is going to quadruple on this show. James Conner.
Thank you for tying our brand
out of there.
Thank you for tying our brand to Skoranek.
And Justin. Okay, Justin Watson's interesting. I guess there are some super cheap receivers that you could actually play.
That's a good kind of segue to the Chiefs. Is all the receivers are cheap. You've forced Travis Kelce into here.
Yeah.
But MVS is 4,700, Juju is 5,500, Hardman is 4,600, Watson is 3,500, and Sky's, and I'm not saying we should play Sky, but he's in the same range. All these guys are cheap. And when will we ever, I go back to what Matt has said for 2 weeks about Rashad Bateman, is that we'll never get Rashad Bateman at this price ever again. When will you ever get Patrick Mahomes, lead wide receivers, 5,500 or cheaper in great matchups ever again?
Yeah.
The only reason that they're there is because we don't know who's gonna blow up. So let's play all those dudes.
Yeah, let's build a lineup with MVS and Hardman. Just
there we go.
Pure cheap prayers on this.
Force a bring back.
Force
and
the
no
bring
tight
back.
end. Now we're talking.
All right.
Oh
no,
okay.
We got Alan Granson in there.
This is a good team, though.
I mean, you got the Waddle-Diggs correlation.
This is a great team. Waddle, Diggs, obviously Lenny. Everybody can understand why Lenny's a good play. Granson as the bring back as a punt tight end is a great play. Panthers are the best defense.
And
this is a good team.
Even fit the Eagles defense in this lineup.
Well, can you switch out Connor for anyone else?
No. Yeah, we can switch out Connor for
Montgomery against Houston.
Montgomery against Houston.
I mean, if we can't play 5 Bears, we can at least play 1.
Let's see what the other lineups look like.
Yeah,
Pittman
let's click through a couple.
On the bring back with Gerald Everett as the tight end.
That's nice.
Just assume that we swapped out Connor after the fact. T. Higgins, AJ Brown, Mo Alley Cox. We can easily flip that to Granson if anyone has a preference. And there's so much salary left over on this lineup. Actually, we could even go for a Knox or a Conklin.
Yeah, that's nice.
So yeah, I mean, I think this is the beauty of this tool is the quick swap, the variety in the lineups here that are generated. Just so much functionality.
Yeah, the one issue, Eric, is that if we were forcing stacks with some of these other games we talked about, the lineups would have looked a lot better. There's so much Paris Campbell, Granson, Hardman, MVS, floating turds in this game that you're gonna. This was actually the actual worst possible game to like show off fun, cool lineups if you're going to be forcing stacks. But it is interesting in that it forces you to then go and use the settings as opposed to just default. If you were to do Tua stacks, the default lineups would have been,
Yeah, I want to try something here.
While Dario does this, I think it is simultaneously both a cluster F, if you will, while we're trying to do it from a literal micro perspective, but from a macro perspective, you see that like when you try to force game stacks of this game, from a macro perspective, the Chiefs, we love the Chiefs.
This is a good lineup right here. Don't go back. What happened?
It had Campbell in it.
Don't worry about Campbell. Campbell's got the snap share and explosiveness. There's going to be weeks where Hardman's and Campbell's
Connor and
Mo Alley Cox's are in making winning lineups. You all know it. That just some weeks it's ugly, turdy dudes getting snaps and running routes make it in because they were 3,400. That's it.
That is literally the point. That's
the point he's making.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you could get Mahomes, Fournette, found the correlation between Mostert and Waddle.
Yes.
And then bring it back with Campbell. Brandon Cooks is in a good spot. Chicago is not very good. No. And then the Panthers defense, they could even Jameis
love
is
the Panthers
questionable
defense this week.
So if Jameis plays, you can count on him to throw picks. And if he doesn't play, you can count on Andy Dalton to just like not move the offense at all.
Jameis Winston with a broken back feels like a good target for a defense. But this exercise, I know it feels like we're fumbling through how to figure out the lineups. But actually, for me as a serious DFS player, watching this was like awesome because you see that the craziness of trying to build Chiefs game stacks is kind of chaotic in your lineups, but when you zoom out, you're like the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are going to hang like a 40 burger on the Colts, and so if it is simultaneously hard to build Chiefs stacks and game stacks of this game, but from a macro view, you see this like shootout potential. That is what we want to target. Because the whole market is just going to be like, they're just going to throw their hands up because you know what I mean? Like when they try to build, when you punch it into the spreadsheet, it doesn't spit out what you want it to. But the macro view is like the Chiefs are just going to hang 40 here. So how do I make teams that then in tournaments can like take advantage of that fact?
Mm-hmm. And all you have to do is like, if you're 150ing this slate, you make, your 20 or Mahomes lineups or 30, whatever, however much exposure you want to have to Mahomes, and you can shuffle around which pieces you stack him with, and all you need is one of those lineups to be, the raw, unadulterated nuts, as Matt likes to say.
All right. Let's wrap it up with final takes of kind of last week. We summarized with a couple of games and one particular kind of skinny stack that we were like, we literally we put the outline together, right? Like a teacher puts together the outline for here's what the course is going to look like. And you just follow this rubric and you're going to get an A. We did that. We did that last week. I didn't follow it myself. What is that kind of rubric this week? What is the kind of secondary stack that you have to have, and what is the game stack that you need to have this week? Dario, let's start with you.
I think this week it's not quite as clear just because there's so many good options, but the game stack that I'm hammering the hardest is definitely going to be Tua doubled with Tyreek and Waddle. And then if I can afford to bring it back with Diggs, that just feels like that stack as a whole should be the chalk, but it's not. So that means I'll play it. And then for a secondary stack, I think that Eagles Commanders game is the most appealing to me. Like, you can get Miles Sanders and Jahan Dotson, builds in some budget flexibility there. And if it's not that game, it's the Lions Vikings, where you can get Amon-Ra and Dalvin Cook. I mean, that's pretty heavily chalky. You could get, like we said, the DeAndre Swift with Justin Jefferson is another pair of options. And I think that I know that I'm probably already gone over 50K just with listing all the elite guys in all these offenses, but I think that should be the takeaway. Like, find, Bills Dolphins is going to be the game of the week, and then just get that small correlation in Lions Vikings, Eagles Commanders, or Rams Cardinals if you somehow can afford Cup.
Yeah, I think that to summarize, if you're going to go full game stack and go super game heavy, it's got to be a Tua on top. Okay? If you're going to have one of these mobile quarterbacks we want to play, Murray, Hurts, Lamar, go super skinny. You can just go Murray and Brown. You don't even have to force a Rams run back, right? You want to throw Skoranek in there as a whatever. I don't care, right? But you could we know we have this wealth of games, so take pieces, right? Just take pieces and both take, Sanders, Eagles, Logan Thomas, right? Diggs and Waddle. Like, you could just play Diggs and Waddle with Murray and Brown, right? So you're getting the correlated pieces that make sense across 3 games, as opposed to concentrating on 1 or 2 games. I think that's the difference. And knowing that you can do that just fine when your quarterback is mobile, and otherwise he better be cheap like Tua.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I will piggyback with some form of the Chiefs, because of literally I was excited to do the exercise
or Nyheim
that
Hines.
we did. Or Nyheim Hines. I'll spoil it for everybody. Currently, my literal main team on DraftKings right now is a Chiefs stack with Nyheim Hines as the bring back. But I don't know that that's what it's going to be. Don't hold me to it. But the point being, how uncomfortable that game is to stack. When it's uncomfortable for everyone and the projections feel uncomfortable is when the upside, it's not the same thing. But the Ravens and Dolphins last week, it was like everybody, the total wasn't great. We literally talked about this last week. The total wasn't great. The game environment was like, play volume, blah, blah, blah. Are the Ravens going to run? You know what I mean? Are the Dolphins going to run? Whatever. And when
we knew it'd go over, knew that.
Yeah, exactly. When teams score a bunch of points, none of that shit matters. And the Chiefs are going to score a bunch of points, and I honestly don't know who it's going to be, but I know who's going to be on the field, and I'll take my shots on who's going to be on the field. And also love every single week my Lions skinny stacks. That's my every just play Lions secondary skinny stacks. Pick your poison, as Sosa says.
Gotta have a Lion or a Viking in there.
Yes, 100%. So for me and for Dario and for Matt, we'll be back next week. Thank you for hanging out with us for a little overtime on the Underworld Stack Fest. But I feel like we covered a lot of good stuff, and we'll be back for week 4 to hopefully continue our triumphant run on some of these game stacks. See you guys next week.